Hello and take your seats for another exciting edition of the Hauger History Podcast, 8th grade level, talking about a special topic today that my students just couldn't get enough of and our textbook just didn't cover enough detail. The Lost Colony of Roanoke is our topic today. 1587, the year when Raleigh dispatched a new group of 115 colonists to establish a colony on Chesapeake Bay. They were led by John White, an artist and friend of Raleigh who had accompanied the previous expeditions to Roanoke, and who they hoped would really become a major ambassador and settlement in the New World and the new colonies. And they were ordered to travel to Roanoke to check in on the settlers that were going on after White had been there 3 years previous to set up and establish the colony. But to his surprise, when he returned, they found nothing except a skeleton that may have been the remains of one of the Englishmen, and they could find no one. So it was this major mystery, and there was new archaeological findings in 2012 that we're going to get to, but the fleet's commander refused to let the colonists return to the ships, insisting that they should establish the new colony. The motives were unclear, and the only major piece of evidence that they found when they came back and looked for the new colonists was the word Croatoan that was inscribed into a nearby tree. And so the thought was, at least prevailing at the time, that perhaps the settlers had moved to go inhabit a nearby island, and that because there was no signs of struggle and the houses were taken down as if they had removed the resources to not have to cut them down altogether, and that it didn't seem there was any urgency in a forced removal or any fight. So these 115 colonists that were left behind, the remaining men and women who had made this Atlantic voyage with White's newly born granddaughter, Virginia Dare, who is the namesake of Virginia, after White returned to England and comes back, he ends up getting into trouble with the Spanish Armada because of the attack on England and the subsequent Anglo-Spanish War. And all of these details, them getting captured, their cargo seized, really delayed White's return back, and it just left this huge mystery, because if something had happened to these colonists that were inhabiting the area of Virginia, that they should have carved a Maltese cross on a nearby tree to indicate that they were forced to leave or forced absence. So without that, there was just left with speculation, a massive storm, and investigations. 12 years went by before Raleigh decided to find out what happened to his colony, being that England had a lot of other political issues and geopolitical struggles at the time. Led by Samuel Mace in 1602, the expedition differed from previous voyages, and Raleigh took his own ship and guaranteed the sailors' wages so they wouldn't be distracted by privateering, which was a big deal at the time, with mercantilism just taking off and the ability for people to really make it rich by finding resources. They really focused on trying to find out more information. They found the remnants of the colony by accident in 1590, but assumed it was only an outlying base of the main settlement, which they believed might have been Chesapeake Bay area, because John White's intention when he founded the colony was that eventually they would move up the Chesapeake and resettle in that area. But with the delays and without enough support and without a timely theory and investigation, hypotheses have just been surrounding for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's just been known as the Lost Colony. My kids had many questions, which were very well thought out questions, like, wouldn't you find skeletons? Wouldn't you find remains? Another student said, well, there's no way they would, because without GPS, it'd be very difficult to navigate back to that specific area, and there's no way to guarantee that you were even looking at the same region anymore with such a small colony on such a large spread of land. But it's amazing that this lost colony and these theories have persisted for 400 years without finding a certain answer. You can read on. There's lots of books that cover with different information and different theories. Some suggest that maybe the colony wasn't really lost, but the fact that they had moved further inland and perhaps made relations with the Native American community of the eastern seaboard, and that they had maybe even thrived and prospered without ever being discovered or found during that same lifespan. So there's so much to be surrounded by these efforts of colonization, the arrival at Roanoke, and Virginia with the namesake, the child that was christened there in 1587. And she was named Virginia by being the first Christian born. And so there's just a lot of speculation. Now, I mentioned in 2012 that there was a lot of new information. And since there was so little information, that there has been so much speculation for years. But in Cape Creek, located in a live oak forest, near the Pamlico Sound. This was the site of the major Croatoan town and the trading hub. And in 1998, archaeologists from East Carolina University stumbled upon a unique find from early British America, which was a 10-carat gold ring engraved with a lion or horse, believed to date to the 16th century. Now, the ring's discovery prompted other excavations by Mark Horton and his group, which was sponsored by Britain's Bristol University. And they had been offering and directing volunteers there to research annual digs since 2009. Now, recently, Horton's team found a small piece of slate that seems to have been used as a writing tablet and part of an iron rapier, which is a light sword that's similar to those in England in the late 16th century that you might remember from looking in from the Renaissance period and the Middle Ages, along with other artifacts that they found of European and Native American origin. The slate, which is a smaller version of one that was found at Jamestown, bears a small letter M that's still barely visible in one corner, and it was found alongside a lead pencil. So in addition to these intriguing objects, which were not usually found in this area, the Cape Creek site yielded an iron bar and a large copper ingot, which is another word for a block, both found buried in layers of earth that appear to date back to the late 1500s. Native Americans didn't have a lot of metal technology or knowledge, so they believed that these were European in origin. Horton, after doing his research, gave an interview with National Geographic and said that some of the items found were possibly trade items, but it does appear that they may have belonged to the Roanoke colonists themselves. The evidence that they assimilated with the Native Americans, quote, but kept their goods, unquote. They also found some maps of the area, and they even included an area that was 50 miles inland, which White alluded to in a testimony after he returned from the colony. So if such a site did exist, the theory says that it would have been a reasonable destination for the Roanoke settlers to visit. And with that, the mystery remains. And will we ever know for sure? Maybe if these research sites continue with these archaeological discoveries, they will continue to shed light on the unknown. Thanks a lot for listening to the Hauger History Podcast, music by Danny Hauger. And you can follow us on Twitter at Hauger History Pod. Enjoy your learning, everybody. And if you have questions, just direct message us on Twitter at Hauger History Pod. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. And thanks for listening, everybody. Go explore the world.